Hi, welcome to Ray Sensation. I'm your host, Dan, and in this episode, I am going to be looking at a very special edition of the Illustrators magazine. It's really a book, a huge hardback book. It's called The U.S. Worn Artists. It's by Peter Richardson with a foreword by Del Toro. It's a giant book. It's a big hardback book. So, but it is by Illustrators magazine, and it's they've done several books about the Warren Publishing Company, that the U.S. Warren Publishing Company's publications. Covering things like creepy, eerie, vampirella, famous monsters, all that good stuff, and those are all of them are worth checking out, and they're all well done. So. Let's take a look at this. Illustrators is out of the UK, but they do cover a lot. They're covering all kinds of illustrators, popular illustrations. But from fine magazine type artwork. They're not going to cover too many artists who are already covered by fancier museum type publications and stuff. They're mainly interested in popular culture, but. They go all over the place, but I, of course, love it when they're hitting the pulp magazines, paperback covers, comics, the black and white magazines. Those are the ones I go for, the men's sweat magazines, all that kind of stuff. And so let's take a quick look through this. There's Del Toro's foreword. I'm not going to bother going through that. I'm going to try and make this a lot quicker than I usually do. You can see here, there's 4 chapters. There's the Old Guard, Reinforcements, the Second Wave, and there's one chapter that's just about one artist, Twilight of a God, which is about Wally Wood. The Old Guard is people like Basil Gogos, Al Williamson, Reed Crandall, Frank Frazetta, Alex Toth. Then the Reinforcements are some, Tom Sutton, I'm really familiar with. Billy Graham, I'm really familiar with. Vic Prezio, I guess is how you say his name. These 2 fellows, I wasn't putting their names to the artwork, but when I saw the artwork, I was like, oh, yeah, I know that. And then the Second Wave is after Warren found more money to start pumping some new life into the magazines. So it's got Kelly Jones, Jeff Jones, Bernie Wrightson, Richard Corben, Ken Smith. So, you see there, it's almost 400 pages long. It's a tremendous book. Let's just flip through it. Here's the Old Guard. Now, you're going to notice that it's not just artwork from the Warren magazines that these people worked on. As a matter of fact, some of the people have almost no Warren stuff in their chapter. It's all about the rest of their, so it's about the artist, and he's just someone who did work for Warren. So let that be a warning to you if you're expecting to see all stuff from Creepy and EERIE and VAMPIRELLA. Starts off with Basil Gogos. What can I say? Iconic covers. I think the Fantico company put out a book of all his monster covers, or most of them, and it's a tremendous book, well worth getting. When I was a kid, these covers just sent me over the moon. I didn't know about fine art at the time. I didn't know that he was taking some of these art styles from old masters and different fine arts. I thought he had just come up with this crazy style on his own, the way he was using the colors and stuff. But he was following in a grand tradition, but he was applying them to something that usually did not get this kind of treatment, kind of care, and just tremendous stuff. I think this is like there was a cheap rubber Frankenstein mask that was sold in the Captain Company ads in the back of Famous Monsters. I think this is a painting of that mask. The guy who wrote this caption seems to think it was just came out of his imagination, but I think I remember a mask that looked like that he sold. But just look at these colors and the imagination. Those colors are not like anything you would see in the movie or on a film. You know, there's just weren't the colors that were used, but they look right. I mean, they just look wonderful. Just tremendous stuff. Love Basil so much. He did a lot of cool stuff for the men's sweat magazines too. Tremendous stuff, worth tracking down. Some of those books about the men's sweat mags that have his stuff in. Larry Ivy, he's like a writer behind the scenes stuff. Here's a layout for a cover. Obviously not a proper drawing for a cover. I think he does do some art though. Maybe they'll have some of it in here. He did that cover. I did not realize that Castle Frankenstein cover. So here he is working for the competition. I'm sure that endeared him to Forrest Ackerman and Jim Warren. Are these pages for things he wrote? Is that what the deal is? Yes. So these are like this Frazetta werewolf story, which is one of my favorites. He wrote that. So there's, a behind the scenes guy. And here's Al Williamson. Now, a lot of the early creepy and eerie artists were people who had worked for EC. And that makes absolute sense for what Jim Warren was doing. He figured there were still some people who were interested in these horror comics, even after the Comics Code had basically snuffed them out. And he was right. The fortunes of Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella, they would all come and go. There were many times where whole entire issues of these comics would just become reprints because he was having money problems. And but there's a lot of good stuff here, and Al Williamson, of course, had been doing comics for a long time. And so we're seeing some of his stuff. This H2O world. Most of the stuff is there's a series of paperbacks. I think I got one of the recent ones right here. Where is it at? Yeah. So these things, here's one of these books. This is volume 2, collecting creepy 6 through 10. Dark Horse is putting these out. Their cover price is $24.99, and usually you can find them on a deal. And so these are great. Hopefully if you if you look at this book, if you're not really familiar with the creepy and eerie stuff, like I say, they go through phases where there's more comics I dislike than I like, but hopefully you can take a gander at these and decide if you want to buy a couple issues or not. Like I said, that's Dark Horse putting those out. Another good one. Tremendous use of the tones, the cross-hatching. I mean, that's a lot of work there, and it's good stuff. These Flash Gordon cartoon comics. I did have a couple of these. He's kind of like Al Williamson. I love looking at his art. I think it's fantastic. But at the time, when I was younger, I was really into the sense of motion and the immersion that people like Kirby and Ditko. I was a Marvel kid. What can I say? And so, I wouldn't have said as a kid that Al Williamson was one of my favorites. I really liked his stuff. It takes getting a little older, for me at least, because I was just so hung up with certain ways of making comics that, to me as a kid, drew me in more than some of the illustrative guys. Torres, yeah. this is some more great stuff here. They're very funny, very, and he's got a lot of. I will say, there's an early. This is Williamson and Torres together. That's an interesting combo. Yeah, I always. Yeah. Oh, here's the thing. He did. He alternated with Mort Drucker on the. Sometimes it'd be both in the same issue, but doing the movie and TV parodies. And when I was a kid, I'd always be really disappointed when it was him doing them because I thought Mort Drucker was much better. Mort Drucker's the way he to me, they were just funnier comics. He just drew the caricatures funnier, but that's just me. Reed Crandall, this is. I look at this. This is astonishing stuff to me. His, he's not using very many solid blacks. He is drawing. He is putting in hatching that to represent all these bricks, and just the mood he creates is just astounding. Again, an EC guy. I actually kind of prefer his black and white work for Creepy and Eerie. I think that when I see that black and white cross hatching, I do have some of the ECs reprinted in black and white that they put out, and those are terrific. They show off his stuff, but he hadn't meant them. He was expecting there to be color on them, and so it's not quite the same. I love that self-portrait. That's very funny. Here, of course, Frank Frazetta. Did very little comics work for that. He was leaving comics behind and going into just doing the paintings. Good move on his part. I gotta say, Frank Frazetta, I have got a lot of videos about a lot of Frank Frazetta books up because I just love Frazetta. They sucker me into picking up new books all the time that have the same artwork in almost all of them. But I do love Frazetta. I'm missing one of the sketchbooks that he did. I'm still looking around for. There's his work on Little Abner. These, it said here that he was told he had to make them look like the J. Allen St. John covers, because that's who he was kind of taking these over for. They were wanting new covers, but they still wanted them to look like the old ones. And I like St. John. These are kind of, they don't quite capture what St. John was doing, and they don't quite capture Frazetta. There's a Hal Foster ripoff there. But these are fun covers. That Sea Monster I really love. Here we get into So Crinkle, one of the other artists that's going to be covered in here, apparently came up with this cover idea for Frazetta to paint. Look at that. These are the ideas he came up with for this cover. And this one is kind of what Frazetta actually ended up doing. That's pretty cool. There is some of the comic work. Crazy Frazetta. And there's a bunch of just showing off some of the most famous covers. Just so terrific. There's the Sea Witch in all her glory. Damn. Some of these have been reprinted so many times already. But, hey, if you're going to do a book and you're going to cover him, you might find somebody who isn't on the Frazetta bandwagon yet. There's always room for new fans. Terrific stuff. And here's Roy Crinkle. That's pretty fun. Wendigo. Loathsome Lore. These single page things. I didn't used to like those that well when I was a kid. I wasn't familiar with this cover of the Edgar Rice Burroughs thing. I do have a book that covers all the covers that of U.S. printings of Tarzan, paperback, comic book, and magazine covers up to a certain time period. And so I've probably seen these, but that book is so overwhelming. It's actually a series of books, but they're overwhelming with the amount of artwork they have in them. Just crazy. And here's again, he came up with the, none of his covers, this is the cover he gave to Frazetta for an idea, and what Frazetta actually did, much better and so cool. That is such a great cover. And more shots for the Wendigo. Gary Morrow. Gary Morrow is somebody who, sometimes his artwork is just a little slick for my taste, but he's definitely done a lot of great stuff too. Fantastic cover there. Another, those monsters are so cool there. I remember this issue of Monster World, and I didn't like how cartoony. One thing I liked was I liked the cartoony things to be. It was okay for them to be corny, cartoony, not corny, cartoony. But when it was the monster magazines, I wanted the monster magazines to not look like cartoony. I don't know why, but that was my thing as a kid, and I really didn't like his drawing of Basil Rathbone. But, that was just me as a picky kid. I had a lot of weird opinions as a kid, okay? Good stuff. And this is another Monster Mag. Monsters Unleashed. I actually liked the Monsters Unleashed. Their covers were all kind of cartoony. They didn't have anybody on the level of Basil Gogos doing their things or stuff. I mean, that's an alright cover, but Alex Toth. He just did so much stuff. I do like his model sheets for cartoons, just so cool. When he was doing this kind of stuff, man. I've got so much Toth. I think Jerry's name is pronounced Grandinetti. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with this DC stuff. That's a really cool cover. I can't believe DC put out a cover with these colors on it. That's wild. What? Shoot, does it have a? It doesn't say what the date is. Oh, no. It says issue 83, but it doesn't have a date. When is it? It doesn't say. I wonder when that was. That's pretty cool. There's another. I mean, the colors on these, the limited color palette on these is really, really fun. It doesn't, again, no dates on those. Huh. Here's some of the stuff from the Warren mags. See, to me, I don't really like these characters that well. the way he's drawing these characters there, but that's just me. Do like that. But boy, I wasn't familiar with these covers. These are cool. I got to check into some of this. And of course, John Severin, by far, he just does. He does so much historical stuff, different time periods, different types of stuff. But very action oriented. He, of course, he did work for Blazing Comet and stuff. He's just so good at this kind of stuff. I mean, when he was in his 90s, he was doing that. What's the Hellboy Mike Mignola tie-in comics is? Witchfinder? Damn it, I can't remember the name of it. He did a Wild West werewolf story for one of Mignolia's Hellboy universe books near the end of his life. Still fantastic stuff. I mean, I don't know how much help he was getting on the back end of it. It might be more than we realize, but I realize. But I really like his stuff. That's fun. Oh, yeah. This is from Marvel Comics' Savage Tales. That was like a comic version of a men's magazine. The kind of stories that would have been in a men's magazine, men's sweats magazine. They had some interesting stuff. They did do some things that were kind of heavy metalish, post-apocalyptic stuff. They did like westerns and war stories and just general adventure tales. And there's some good stuff in there. I should look through some old issues of that if I think people would actually watch it. And here, of course, is Neal Adams. I did not know he had worked on Archie. I cannot say that anything about that makes me think of Neal Adams. Neal Adams, some of his comic work I like, some I'm not crazy about. He's another illustrator guy, so if somebody's a really great illustrator, I can appreciate the work, but I don't really get as into it as a kid. Now, this stuff, his covers are so dynamic, though, and so different than the other things that were happening at the time. And he did movie posters, too. I mean, his movie poster for the movie Grizzly, I mean, I would have gone to see it anyway. I was a teenager, and I would have gone to see it. I was like 14, 15 when that came out, so I was going to go see it anyway. A killer grizzly bear, but that poster, oh my God. This is from his Sniper comic, the famous story about the kid climbing up the tower and shooting people. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Bogdanovich's movie Targets, although it's only the one scene because it's more like the Texas shooting. Here's Ditko. I'm not going to go into a lot of this. Ditko, one of my top artists of all times. The Spider-Man comic started a year after I was born, so I was a couple years into it, but I was luckily they had done Marvel Tales, so wasn't that what it was called? Or was that the Fantastic Four? They did the reprints of all the early ones. I mean, just his Spider-Man, Steve Ditko, it was his sense of motion in those comics and Kirby's sense of motion in Kirby's comics. They are really what grabbed me as a kid, and that's how I thought of the type of action that would suck me into the story was the work those guys were doing, and other people to a lesser degree. But I love Ditko, and I love monsters, but I don't really seem to like Ditko's monster stuff too as much as I'd do some other ones. That is a great image though. Isle of the Beast. Here's with the creeper. And Gene Colan. I love Gene's work, and you know, those are ridiculous fangs there, but still pretty cool. He did so much work in so many different genres, but I gotta say that he was perfect for Tomb of Dracula. And then, what was the one he did after Tomb of Dracula? The one about the group of paranormal investigators? Night something? Oh, God, I can't think of it. And I love that comic. Oh, well. And probably they won't mention it in here. Yeah, that's wild. These are wild panels. There he is with Howard the Duck. Does it say anything about it? No, it doesn't say anything about that. After Tomb of Dracula, they did mention Tomb of Dracula. Gosh darn it! What was that other comic? Russ Heath is a guy who, when I was a kid, Star Spangled War, the dinosaurs versus soldiers, I just ate that up. I love dinosaurs, and I even liked the ones where they weren't realistic; they were just treated as monsters. I loved them. So, yeah. Now, I'm not really that familiar with Little Annie Fanny. When I was a kid, I saw it when I was a kid, and of course I do like drawings of naked women, but I didn't understand the comics at the time. And as I got older, I never went back to look and see if I would enjoy it or not. To me, it's not calling to me. But again, more of this monster stuff. That looks like very Kubrick type of those lines there. This is some good stuff. I didn't read Blazing Combat. I wasn't I knew people who were coming back from Vietnam, and just Blazing Combat just wasn't appealing to me. Reinforcements. So these are I guess these are people who were working these are the people they think were working in Creepy and Eerie between the really great early guys and the later really great guys. Tom Sutton is a guy whose artwork there's some things that when he's drawing I'm not that crazy about. He always seemed to be not taking the horror part that seriously. Even when he was, something about it seemed like it wasn't quite. But that being said, there's a lot of illustrations of his that I'm really quite fond of. And he did some work for the mainstream people too. Now these covers for Charlton, I got a couple of these because the covers, these seemed like they were going to be the wildest. I mean, look at that cover. But then it was the usual Carlton, disappointment inside. Man, that is... this is facing page. This is for Future Chronicles for Marvel Comics Planet of the Apes magazine. I only had a couple issues of Planet of the Apes. But that looks like Droulet. Is that the artist's name? The heavy metal artist? He produced a series of bondage comics for Fantagraphics under the Eros Comics imprint. Now, I bought some of the Eros stuff. I don't remember ever buying any of his. That is, quite frankly, very disturbing. Which may be the point, but that's a pretty cool monster there. Now, these two guys, when I was... I recognized this artwork, but I did not put their names to this stuff. So that's kind of like a... And it's not bad. I remember I had some of this done. I got an issue or two of this Frankenstein comic where Frankenstein's... This was for Dell Comics. Frankenstein's a good guy. Here he is fighting an evil twin, I guess. I'm trying to remember. He's not... He's like a robot, not a real human being, I think. I don't really remember it that well, but I think he's a robot, not a made out of flesh. I just remember I didn't like it. I do like that monster there attacking that guy. But this is wide-ranging stuff they've got here. It doesn't look. Some of these captions only mention one of the guy's names, so I guess this is kind of like they have to share a capper. Billy Graham, he did some great stuff. He definitely was all over the place as far as, so I know absolutely that I haven't seen most of his stuff because he produced a mass amount of it, and he did a lot of it for the alien plague thing, for stuff that I wasn't interested in. That is a fantastic cover because it's wild as hell, but also funny because it's so over the top. It's just that is wild. Graham in MC mode. Vic Parisot. He did some interesting stuff. He's another one that I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. So I can only comment on a few things I have seen. His work for, this is a lame-ass movie. And just Lon Chaney Jr. near death. No, it's not near death, but, it's all about the torture of this woman, which is, he did the Men's Sweat magazines too, so I'm sure he did some torture stuff. But yeah, there's Men's Sweat mags, and like I said, I think the intersection of the Men's Sweats and the comics is pretty interesting. This is a famously swiped cover, but I loved it. I loved it at the time. I think it's great. The figures are not really... except for that little hand to the face, that figure does not really speak to peril. But this is wild. That's great. And this face really creeped me out as a kid. That was great. This is great. And there's the Amazing Stories where he ripped off that other cover from. This is wild. It's always interesting to me when they decide to just flip the picture and say, okay, we need this will work better for us to put where we want to put the wordage. Now here's the second wave, which is the arrival of the next, Warren got a little bit back on his feet and started spending some money again and was, not wanted to do less reprints, although he still did reprints. But, this is Ken Kelly's first thing for Warren, this cover for Vampirella #6, and Ken's uncle was Frank Frazetta. And so if you see a little Frazetta popping up in there, he definitely was trying not to look too much like his uncle. But there's a little bit of it in there. But it talks about how when he showed this to Frank first, and Frank changed the face on the girl, and it made him before he turned it into to Warren to be printed. And it was, he says he was very irritated. Oh, and this is interesting too. When Warren was reprinting the Will Eisner Spirit things, like this is Eisner's illustration for the cover. Then Kelly would do the coloring work, and they would have made an acetate of this original thing, and they would lay those blacks back on top after the color work had been done, so the outlines and stuff would really pop again. I did not know that. This looks great to me. That's a great. Wow. Now, at the time, to me, this isn't peak barbarian art. I think some of these Kelly things are, seem like maybe not exactly rip-offs of Frank, but, they're just generic kind of sword and sorcery stuff. I like this Yeti, but, there's some good stuff here. I like this drawing a lot. Of course, I forget where this was used. An album. Yeah, that's right. Who was the band that did that for? He did it originally for Kiss, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's where this was used. I didn't like Kiss, so I don't know. But I remember that cover being on that being an album cover, and I had the paperback. I might still have it around. That was for. Good stuff. Now I don't know, where was this from? Oh, this is one he did for a Ken Kelly card collection. Remember when everybody was doing trading cards with their stuff on it? I don't have that one. I do have a video about some card series that I collected. You can look that up. Look through my old stuff. Jeff Jones. Now, Jeff, at the time he was doing the work for Creepy, EERIE, and Vampirella, he still was going by the name Jeff Jones. He changed his name later, and they mentioned that in the back. I don't think it's bad that they kept the name Jeff Jones on this stuff. Your mileage may vary, but I'm okay with it. Web of Horror. I have a video. They just put out a book that collects all 4 issues of the Web of Horror, including the one that was never actually printed. And there's some interesting stuff in there. I remember I had an issue of the Web of Horror that was missing a cover. And I liked it. I thought it was good. But everybody, the thing is that people talk this stuff up so much that about how much better, how much more freedom they had than a Creepy and EERIE. But I don't know that that's really the case. I think they're better than they're certainly better than the average Creepy or EERIE that was coming out at the time. But check out my video on the complete Web of Horror. I definitely think the book is worth getting because there's a lot of back matter, as we say, and it has the 4th issue that wasn't printed, and some of that stuff I had seen, including the Bernie Wrightson piece, but I had never seen it printed decently before. So a lot of good stuff in there. Check it out at least. Check out my video at least and see if you think it. Was not familiar with these. Paperback covers. I think they look pretty cool. I'm very familiar with this because I was reading National Lampoon all the time. I liked that he drew nudity, and I thought some of his characters were fun to look at, but I did not understand it. I was too young to be reading the National Lampoon at the time, but what can I say? Some of this is a painting he did of Robert E. Howard's Solomon Kane. Here's some of his later work. He did a lot of pictures of sad-looking women. Some people say that he used his own face for the modeling. Excuse me. That's a nice piece there. And here's Ken Smith. Ken Smith is somebody I never really think about. Ken Smith. I'm not standing around going, oh yeah, Ken Smith. But then I look at some of these pieces he did, and I say like, oh yeah, that's iconic. That's wild stuff. I remember that. I'm not very familiar with the stuff he did outside of Creepy and Eerie. I do like this demon and the warlock thing. It reminds me of maybe he was thinking of the early Frazetta piece with the wizard, the warlock and the demon. Of course, you can't bypass Bernie Wrightson. They did a Dark Horse did a book that was just the Richard Corben work that he had done for Creepy and Eerie, and but I don't know that they did a one for Bernie Wrightson. I'm not sure if there's enough, but and of course, most people know, we've discovered Bernie Wrightson through his work for DC and the Swamp Thing. Monster Jar, the game that plays you. This version of the Black Cat. Just terrific stuff. And here's first page of Jennifer. A very disturbing story. The way he ends up drawing Jennifer's face. He's terrific, of course, at drawing Jennifer's body looking great, and then the face. And here's the H.P. Lovecraft story, Cool Air. Cool Air, I think, is the Lovecraft story that has been the most adapted, and it's one of the ones where the least happens. I don't know, but you do get to have the big payoff is always you get to see what the body has melted into after the air conditioning is ruined. Picture from his Frankenstein. I'm going too slow, I know. And then, of course, Corben. Good Lord, when I was younger, Corben was the guy. After Kirby and Ditko. Now, I can't say that. There's so many artists that I loved when I was younger. But Corben, oh gosh. His, the way he, his love of drawing nude figures running around doing stuff. It was like, why don't more people do this? and like Rolf, I guess is how you say his name. That's a great character, and that's funny as hell. Mutant World is one of my all-time favorites. I didn't realize that this language these guys are speaking is Esperanto. Esperanto is a language that was made up, I guess they made it up in the 60s. It was supposed to be a language that everyone could learn easily, everyone in the world, so that there's one language that connected everybody, and that would solve so many problems. And I remember there's a William Shatner fantasy film. It's kind of like an overly long Twilight Zone episode or something, where everyone speaks in Esperanto. But when I read this, I don't remember. I didn't know that that's what that was. Fantastic color work. Monsters. I like that better in black and white. And I like Richard's color work. This famous shark one. Twisted tail. Oh God, I love this. I love this dinosaur. I love this. There you go. Fever Dreams, one of his underground comics. And then here's the Wally Wood one. I did look at this chapter. It is mostly about the tragedy of Wally Wood, and I mean that it's not mostly about that, but that's what it ends up kind of seeming like. You know, some of the most famous sci-fi comics of all times were ones that he illustrated for EC, and you know, he did some great fantasy, like sword and sorcery type stories for Warren. This one's from Vampirella. I don't think, again, Corben got an issue all to his own. I don't think they did that for Wally Wood. I wish they would. would. I'd go for that. Have them all in one place. More EC. This is very funny with her riding on his shoulders. Some of his raunchy stuff he did for Al Goldstein. Screw Magazine. I have a video on the 2 volumes of the 2-volume set of the Wally Wood artwork. You can check that out if you want more. And there's even some ads, like a regular magazine. Well, that's it. I told you it would be quick, and it wasn't. I lied. But I hope you found this interesting. I hope this helps you decide. I know this is selling for like $90 or something now. It was a lot cheaper when I pre-ordered it, but there you go. Have a nice day, and like, comment, subscribe.